What we know is that wherever there are power disparities, men will abuse women and other men. That's happened throughout history and societies. And there is no greater power disparity than in internally displaced persons camps or in conflict and crisis zones where large NGOs or the United Nations or other organizations come in to try and provide aid, to try and provide healthcare, but then have this huge amount of power over local people. What we found is that organizations that do address these issues, right, commission reports into them and really try to implement safeguarding, will have more reporting coming into them about other abuse because victims and survivors will feel safe to report. We actually worry the most about the organizations that are doing nothing at all. Organizations like the African Union that don't even have a policy telling their staff that they can't sexually abuse or exploit people, or these large organizations that say that there's never been an abuser in their midst.
And that is concerning. I want to go back a step, though. Do these organisations attract people more prone to that power dynamic, as we've seen in institutional abuse in, say, the Catholic Church?
I think that there's two different types of perpetrators. There are the predatory ones that seek out these opportunities, and quite often they will go and work for smaller organizations, for charities or smaller NGOs where there isn't even a safeguarding policy, where there is no form of accountability. And then what you have are the opportunistic predators, which I think is the vast majority of perpetrators. They are the ones who arrive in a country and realize that it's a neo-colonialism. It's a new form of colonialism. They arrive in a country and realize that they have all this power and all this money and that they are being treated as heroes. And they start to abuse that power. And very often that abuse is sexual abuse.
The very fact that they are being treated like heroes, they are coming in, you know, as almost sort of Prince Charming on the white charger. Does it mean that in most cases their communities are too afraid to report what has been going on?
There are lots of barriers to reporting. Some people don't know where to report, or maybe there isn't a reporting mechanism. Maybe they're not literate. Maybe they don't have a mobile phone number. Maybe they are in a remote area and they can't travel in to report to a peacekeeping camp. Another barrier is what you've identified. If you have peacekeepers coming into an area to protect people from a genocide, or you've got World Health Organization staff who are protecting people from Ebola and saving many thousands of lives, there may be pressure within communities that women and girls should not report in abuse in case those peacekeepers then are barracked and sent home and the genocide is perpetrated, or in case the World Health Organization brings back all of its staff and Ebola is allowed to run rampant. So of course that is one barrier to reporting, but we need to find ways to overcome that, to work with local communities in designing and delivering programs in a way that makes them know that whistleblowing and reporting in abuse will not mean that those programs disappear overnight.
So there's these safeguarding programs that you work very closely with. How too do you change the culture within organisations? Because a lot of that is being enabled, that people are turning a blind eye to what is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. We see within any large institution, whether it's an NGO or the World Health Organization, or currently in my country, the London Metropolitan Police, that you need to change organizational culture by instilling values into the individuals within the organization. Everyone needs to know that they take responsibility for addressing sexual exploitation and abuse. Everyone within an organization needs to know that they have a responsibility to report in or to challenge abusive behavior when they see it. And that can't be done with a quick fix solution. That has to be done by working with each organization to identify areas of weaknesses and challenge, and also to identify how they're going to take safeguarding forward, which is the work that I've been doing with Keeping Children Safe for the past 5 years, for the largest NGOs in the UK, for the United Nations, for the Uruguayan military. You can implement safeguarding if an organization really does care about preventing sexual exploitation and abuse, but you can only implement it if the leadership take that up and say, this is an issue that we need to challenge and address.
Yeah, so I'm interested, and it's encouraging, I guess, at least that the WHO owned the behaviour and exposed it. When you're talking about safeguarding, what does that entail?
Safeguarding entails everything from prior to employing a person or prior to delivering a program, all the way through to accountability. What it entails is making sure that every person in the organisation understands their responsibility, that there are safe methods for reporting in, that there are ways of communicating with victims and survivors. And I think one of the key issues that's come out from this WHO report, even though I commend them for doing the investigation and for being so open about it, is that there doesn't seem to be accountability. They say that they'll report into the national authorities in the country, but this is too late. The perpetrators have already gone. And yes, they fired some people, but it's not good enough that if you abuse women and girls, and in this circumstances, some boys as well, that the most you'll face is to lose your job. That's appalling. And what we always emphasize is this idea of accountability. What is accountability and justice for the victim or survivor? Are they going to be providing support for the babies that have been fathered by these abusers? Are they going to be providing psychosocial support for the victims and survivors? And are they going to be seeking to have these people prosecuted?
Yeah, and the answers to that are very muddy at the moment. Rosa, you know, so many companies are subject to governance regulations, and sometimes funding is tied to that. Is that a critical component of this?
Absolutely, it's a critical component. And what we're seeing from the FCDO or from DFAT in Australia or from USAID is that the funders are now turning around to these NGOs and saying, if you do not have proper and effective safeguarding, then you will lose funding, because the NGO sector in some ways operates in the Wild West. There is no real law and order. They are not subject to the laws of the countries where they're headquarters, because the design and delivery of programs is abroad. But often the places where they are operating, there may have been a breakdown of rule of law and of legal institutions. And so really the funders have to take responsibility for ensuring that there is organizational safeguarding, that these NGOs have proper boards and governance structures, and that there is accountability. There will always be sexual exploitation and abuse for as long as there are men in the world, but that there is accountability when that happens.
Rosa, so good to get your analysis and your expertise on this. Thanks so much.
Thank you.